Welcome to Israel Chronicles, where we dive into the history of the land of Israel. Today, we journey through a pivotal period from the aftermath of World War I to the Declaration of Independence of the State of Israel in 1948. A time marked by resilience, struggle, an unwavering dream of a homeland for the Jewish people. In 1917, the Balfour Declaration signaled British support for the establishment of a national homeland for the Jewish people in the land of Israel, the land of British Mandatory Palestine. By 1920, Great Britain was granted the mandate for Palestine, tasked with implementation of this vision. It is important to note that British mandate in Palestine was never a sovereign country. There was never such a thing as a state of Palestine. Throughout history, it was a region within a larger empire, including the Ottoman Empire, the later British Empire, and so on and so forth. The same, by the way, holds true for all other Arab territories, which were never also a sovereign state. They were always a part of an empire and not independent sovereign states, such as Syria, Jordan, Saudi, Egypt, and so on and so forth. Throughout the 20s and the 30s, waves of Jewish immigrants, or aliyah as we call them, arrived in British Palestine, escaping persecutions and seeking to rebuild their lives. They established agricultural settlements such as kibbutzim and moshavim and laid the foundation of a thriving Jewish society. Between 1918 and 1936, the Jewish community in British Mandate Palestine, known as the Yishuv, worked tirelessly to lay the foundation of their future state. They built new agricultural settlements, expanded existing cities, building new cities, and established thriving industries. Educational and cultural institutes such as the Hebrew University of Jerusalem and the Technion in Haifa were also founded, nurturing and renewing the spirit of the Jewish innovation and learning. The rise of Nazi Germany in the 30s brought systematic persecution of Jews, culminating in the Holocaust itself. Hajj Amin al-Husseini, the Grand Mufti and the religious leader of Muslim Jerusalem, became a vocal ally of the Nazis. His anti-Semitic rhetoric included calls for violence against Jews and opposition to their presence in British Mandatory Palestine. And Husseini met with Adolf Hitler himself and other Nazi leaders seeking their support for his vision of a Jewish free Middle East. And Husseini's influence extended way beyond the boundaries of British Palestine, inspiring anti-Semitic sentiments in parts of the Arab world. In Iraq, for example, a pro-Nazi force led the Farhud, a brutal pogrom against Baghdad's and Basra's Jewish communities in 1941. Anti-Semitic violence was not limited to Europe alone or to Iraq. In British Palestine, tension between Jewish and Arab communities erupted into deadly pogroms. In 1921, riots in Jaffa, Jerusalem, and Hebron led to the death of dozens of Jews and the destruction of homes and businesses. In 1929, violence escalated furthermore, with a massacre in Hebron and Safed claiming the lives of over 130 Jews. These events underscored the growing hostility faced by the Jewish community as they worked to establish their homeland. It is important to emphasize these victims were not newcomer Jews. They lived in these cities for centuries and even more. These attacks contradict the Arab claim that they have attacked only the Zionist villages and had nothing against the original Jewish population who lived in the land of Israel before the massive immigration. These Jewish communities who lived in Iraq and British Palestine since the time of the First Temple period, even before, meaning from 586 BCE, almost 1,000 years before the arrival of Islam. From 1936 to 1939, the Arab Revolt erupted, protesting Jewish immigration and British rule. As violence escalated, Britain sought to appease Arab leaders, issuing the White Books, a series of 3 codex books of policies limiting Jewish immigration. And this is under the mass blossoming of anti-Semitism in Europe. The main purpose of this was to ease the mind of the Arabs. Important fact, between the years 1918 and 1948, the Arabs who lived under the British mandate were called simply Arabs and not Palestinians. That is why the revolt was called the Arab Revolt and not the Palestinian Revolt. For Jews fleeing Nazi Germany and Nazi Europe, this restriction felt like a huge betrayal, especially given the fact that British mandate in the land of Palestine was surrounded by Arab territories who never existed as a sovereign nation, but rather as regions historically governed by empires. For the Jews, it was a huge betrayal. The Jews helped the British mandate, helped the British Empire in their fight against Nazi Germany and the Allied and the Axis forces, while the Arabs actually fought with the Nazis against the British. Thousands of Jews from the British mandate in Palestine volunteered to serve in the British Army, fighting against the Nazis. Their contribution were not only display of courage, but also step forward, proving the Jewish community readiness for its statehood. One of the outcomes of these mass waves of volunteers brought to a wave of sympathism from British generals such as Lord Wingate, who was heavily influenced by the story of Gideon and the Midianites. Lord Wingate was the first one to establish the Night Brigade, which later on became the elite forces of the Israeli Defense Forces. As the Second World War continued to rage throughout Europe, Nazi forces under the leadership of General Erwin Rommel were making their way through North Africa, heading towards Israel via Egypt and El Alamein. Thousands upon thousands of Jews who lived in the land of Israel joined the British Air Force and the British Army to push back Rommel and his Nazi brigades from North Africa, and thus saving Israel from the hands of the Nazis. This act of bravery came with a heavy cost. Many of the Jews who joined the British Army to push back the Nazis died in the battles in North Africa, but left the legacy that gave the foundation for the Israeli army. We must understand that this picture is much more complex. We have to think about the Jews who lived in the land of Israel and left their families in Europe. Their families were persecuted and murdered on a daily basis by the Nazis and their sympathizers. Their families were sent to death camps and labor camps to die without any assistance, and the Arabs around them supported the Nazis. Throughout this, the Jews in Israel found the bravery and the resilience to fight back, to join the British forces and the American forces, and to push away the sworn enemies, the Nazis. The Yishuv also organized itself for defense and governments. The Haganah and the Etzel and the Lehi, a Jewish paramilitary organizations, were established in 1920 to protect Jewish communities. Politically leaders like David Ben-Gurion and Chaim Weizmann emerged advocating for Zionist cause on the international stage. Alongside with them was the Ze'ev Jabotinsky, who represented the right wing in the Zionist movement. This was a time of growth and tension. While Jewish immigration brought opportunity and prosperity, it also heightened friction with segments of the local Arab population, leading to periodic clashes. Still, Jewish settlers remained steadfast in their mission, believing they were not only building a homeland, but fulfilling a historical destiny. In 1947, the United Nations voted to the partition of British mandate in Palestine. into two separate states, a Jewish state and an Arab state. Despite opposition and violence, the Jewish leadership led by David Ben-Gurion seized the moment. On May 14, 1948, the State of Israel was declared, fulfilling a dream of generations in the making. This era, fought with challenges and sacrifice, laid the foundation for the modern State of Israel. Thank you so much for joining us on Israel Chronicles. Make sure to join us on our next episode, where we continue to unveil the amazing stories of this amazing nation. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel. And if you have any questions or remarks, please leave them on the marks below.